The rate of job cut announcements, U.S. employers in November, was more than 5 times greater than a year ago, same month. U.S.-based firms announced 76,835 job cuts just in November, led by what sector? Technology. So far this year, tech companies have announced over 81,000 cuts. Now, we know one of them. I have to laugh. Twitter, of course, is cutting about 11,000 jobs. That's a good thing. Sorry, Twitter folks, but you know my opinion on that. I don't like censorship. But back to reality here. Amazon, hiring freeze. Apple, pausing all hiring. Google, reducing all hiring by 50%. Some saying these layoffs are just getting started, just the beginning. There's going to be way more. My next guest, Peter Schiff, is a chief economist and global strategist with Europac.com and the founder of Schiff Gold, as well as the owner and founder of EPAC Funds. He's always on top of all these issues. That's why we love having him on the program. Recently, he tweeted this. Challenger announcing 76,835 job cuts in November, more than double October and 5 times November last year. 70% high-paying tech jobs are the ones leaving. At the same time, personal savings rate plunged to 2.3%, the lowest since July of 2005. How's your savings looking, folks? Workers will be losing jobs with no savings and a vanishing home equity. Yes, prices are dropping. People that bought in the last few years on the top are hurting. We're probably going to see a lot of foreclosures. Not good things, but if you ask Joe and the folks at CNN or somewhere else, everything's fine. Let's welcome Peter back to the program and get real on what's happening with our economy. Peter, welcome back. So GDP went up a hair, a little better than they predicted, but this is all smoke and mirrors. When you've got major corporations laying off tens of thousands of people, when nobody's got any savings, when the housing market is getting soft and starting to crash in some states, if we're not in it, we're definitely headed for it. So do they have blinders on? They're just trying to BS the American people. How can this regime keep telling folks the economy is great?
Well, they're going to keep saying that, but that's not true. In fact, what they're not telling you about the Q3 GDP, all of that increase came from an improvement in the trade deficit. It's not like it went away. It just got slightly less enormous than it had been. And that was for 2 reasons. One, the strong dollar enabled us to buy imports cheaper, but also all that oil that was released from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we got to export that. And so that increased our exports and reduced our deficit. And so that helped us out. But what's already happening in the fourth quarter is the dollar is tanking. It just had its biggest 1-month decline in 12 years in November. It's off to a horrible start in December. And all the economic data that's come out so far on the fourth quarter suggests that GDP in the fourth quarter is going to be negative again. So we would have a negative GDP in the first quarter, the second quarter, and then again in the fourth quarter. And Q4 drop could be bigger than the first two. And I think so we're going to end the year on a low note, and then we're going to have another negative quarter of GDP in Q1 of 2023.
Wow. So I was raising holy hell when he was doing that second big release of our reserves that are supposed to be for emergencies. I didn't realize we sold all that off to drive that down. That's manipulating the market to try and make what his regime's doing look better. And did it help us? Yeah. Okay, gas went down, let's say in Cali. We're down about $1. Right now we're paying right at $5. We were $6.20. So it did go down. But he did it in a corrupt way. Plus, not to mention, he drained most of our emergency reserves that's supposed to be for the military.
We're gonna run out of those reserves sometime next year. And I think in California, by the time Biden finishes his first term and hopefully his only term, I bet you guys in California will be paying $10 a gallon for gas.
Gosh. Bite your frickin' tongue, Peter. That's when you're going to see some really upset liberals in California if that stuff goes to $10.
Yeah, well, it's not even going to stop there. It could go higher.
Well, you know, I was just talking about this with a gentleman the other day because I filled up my tank. It was yesterday, actually. Big, long line of guys at a Chevron out here. And the guy working behind the counter, the guy in front of me, all went, well, at least it's down to 5. And I went, are you okay with 5? Well, it was 6 last month. I'm like, you're okay with this new normal. And then a bunch of guys start chiming in. This new normal sucks. Like, they're trying to convince us, just like they did in Europe, right? Years ago. $5, that's where you need to be. I think they're trying to just get us in this mindset. That's where it's going to be. And we have to do it to save the planet. We've got to rip the Band-Aid off of all fossil fuels. And everything else will work itself out. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm right on the dollar going down, it's going to push oil prices way up because we've had the benefit of a strong dollar for the last year or two. So if you thought inflation was bad this year, wait till you get a load of it next year when we have a weak dollar.
See, and that's the tax, right? Joe keeps bragging on, I'm not taxing anyone that makes under $400,000. Inflation is a tax. And if it keeps going up, I mean, we're at the highest in 41 years. You're saying it's going to be worse next year.
Absolutely. Every dollar that the government spends, every dollar that the government spends must be paid for by the public, one way or the other. So there's two ways government gets money from the public. One is honestly through taxation, where it takes our money and then spends it. But the other way is dishonest. They just print money. They don't tax us, they just print money, and then they spend that into circulation. But when they do that, the price of everything we buy goes up. Yeah. And so instead of taking our money, they take our purchasing power. So every time you go to the supermarket and you're paying a higher price, you're paying a tax. Those higher prices are the cost of big government. And the more government spends, the higher prices are going to rise.
Wow. Peter Schiff, I want to end this, I want to end this on a positive note, shall we? Can you put the headline up? U.S. Appeals Court denies Biden's student loan debt. Speaking of taxing, because to me that was a tax, trying to make me pay for other people's college education. What are you hearing on the streets? This is dead in the water. This will not ever get revived. This was a political tactic to try and win an election and buy votes in my terms. But it's got to be dead on arrival. There's no way this will ever go through.
Hopefully, because that was a terrible decision on the part of Biden administration. It would cause tuition prices to rise much faster in the future than they had in the past, and all of it was going to be financed with the inflation tax. What we need is to end completely government's involvement in education. No more guaranteed loans, no more direct loans. We need to get the government out of education so we can get the free market in, and that will bring prices way down and quality way up.
Right, because of competition. Get the government out of every damn thing. Peter Schiff, Chief Economist, Global Strategist, as always, we appreciate your expertise and insight. Thank you, sir. Take care.
All right, take care.
Yep.